got a real mental map of it, but I can't quite remember all the specifics. But if
I
you
know what it
drop me,
was.
yeah.
Sorry, I was saying to Lee, I saw Bangor Football Club play. Like this is a good, maybe it could have been like 15 years ago, and they were so bad.
Were they?
That
No.
yeah, it was they were really bad. Like, so when kids are like learning to play football, they don't hold their position, and then they just, like a swarm of
Oh
bees, they
yeah,
just
just
chase the
drift
ball.
around. Yeah,
And
it was like that,
it
was
was
it?
oh my god, it was so bad, Darian. I was like, do you think I should go down and ask the coach, should I get up?
Can you help?
It's
Yeah.
like,
Well, no, it's funny because yeah, of course
very-
the ground was right in the centre of town. It's just opposite the
yeah,
station. But I never saw anybody like going to a match or supporting them or anything like that. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and now you know why.
Sorry, what's someone's posted a picture of me on Discord and I don't know why.
It's because the name says John Honeyball on it.
Oh, has he bloody changed it? I don't think I can change that without stopping. Well, it's fine. You guys will just have to live with this impersonation.
That's going to be very confusing now for
It
me
is
for the
going to
rest
be.
of.
Yes. That's weird. I was on last week though. Has he been on in the meantime? And I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Lee is in the dark. Lee's always in the dark.
You don't know what to do. Lee's always in the dark.
Hey, hey!
I really need you tonight.
No, not that one. You Bruce Springsteen.
Oh well, yes. Even
Oh.
if Lee's just podcasting in the dark. I'm coming to you today from a new Wi-Fi
Here I am.
7 mesh system, and I'm
Oh,
very
hang on.
pleased it seems to be working. Yeah, you've just ruined your own connection there, Lee. I don't know what you did.
I didn't do anything. It naffed off and came back in the Discord. I was
Naffed
trying to tell you the important news that literally 2 miles away from where I live, Bruce Springsteen last week came in at dinner
He did.
Really?
in Huddersfield.
Bruce Springsteen in Huddersfield.
Bruce Springsteen came to Huddersfield.
The
And I
boss.
said to my wife, "You are taking yes, the boss." I said, "You are taking the piss," and no, it is true. Apparently, there is some famous actor from round here whose name completely escapes me, and apparently his wife is something to do with Springsteen. Springsteen has been playing gigs in Manchester, and there was a deal done to sort of have lunch, and they ended up in this place, which is in a little place called Kirkburton, which is 2 miles down the road in the middle of pig in nowhere, and in walked Bruce Springsteen and his band. So the
Wow.
regular diners were there having a pot noodle for lunch or whatever you sell in restaurants these days, and in walks the boss.
Well, this is fully confirmed by the internet. It turns out the actor was Stephen Graham from Adolescence.
Oh yes, I know it was something I hadn't watched.
Yeah, me neither. I've heard all about it. Though.
Yeah.
Wow, how exciting! I don't know if anyone famous has been anywhere near me lately.
Oh, Jeff Campbell said he was in Bradford the other day. Well, you could have dropped in, Jeff. You're always welcome.
Ooh.
Bring a pot noodle.
Rose, have you seen Ninja Nurses questioning your credentials in the most positive way possible?
Yeah, go on. No, I haven't. I locked myself out of Discord.
Oh, he said, so basically, I'll read it out. Last
Yeah.
week, we welcomed Darian's better half, who, of course, also has a PhD. It was commented that it was a rarity to have 2 doctors. I suggested it's common, as you have a PhD too. Ian Clark believes your level's above it. Please explain.
Oh, that's yeah. I mean, I agree. I am levels above it. You know, you know when people say, "Oh, you can't," don't be too judgy. I always say, literally a job, and I would judge everything, like Simon Cowell, from one end of the week to the next. So who knows where my career will take me? I agree. I'm so much more than just a doctor.
I was
If that-
I was saying
sorry.
that now I'm kind of back in my alma mater. I was thinking, it'd be really nice to sort of re-engage with the academic side of things, and then it occurred to me that I've kind of come to probably the most difficult place in the world to break into academia. The competition is just absolutely insane. It would make much more sense to go and camp out outside Thames Valley University or something if I wanted to be a lecturer.
And the bloody cost of it now.
Well, hopefully they would pay you, but I wasn't intending to become a student again.
But I nearly called you John because I read.
Oh,
my-
fine.
Sorry.
That's my-
No. No.
And she's a
but Darian,
doctor.
yeah. No. But Darian,
Hello.
here's the thing. Yeah. So, but you come from two very different disciplines that are quite necessary, and nobody could have foretold or predicted, like 20 or 30 years ago, the need for someone with your skill set. So what you have is you've got all of the like English language, communication, telling stories, but you are also deep tech. I think that you could travel the world and there would only be a handful of people with your expertise and qualifications. And I'm not saying that just because this is live and it's going out.
No, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm only going to interrupt you so I can make a mark that it's 1 p.m. But that's fine. Sorry. Pray, continue to.
Yeah, so
I'll come back in 10.
So I think Cambridge would be very lucky to have somebody with your very specific skill set, especially because of the trajectory that the world is taking and the speed that it's taking it at.
That's very kind of you to say so, but I feel like, well, you'll know as a fellow PhD, as you progress in your career, you learn more and more about less and less until eventually you know everything about nothing. And I feel, yes, there is probably one job in the world which I'm suited for, and I currently have it, so there's no chance of progression or anything.
See, I disagree, but I know where it's 1 o'clock. But this is Dunning-Kruger. It's because you understand that there's actually so much complexity and so much nuance that would make you particularly good for the role of that you would need to undertake if we are going to make the headway that we can in this country with the best and brightest. Come on, Cambridge.
It's very kind of you. Yeah, well, I'll get you to write me a reference later. But now we probably ought to start. So you can see why I don't get to do this very often. Good afternoon and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. I am Darian Graham Smith. I don't remember when I last presented this thing myself. Maybe Lee will, but we'll come to him in a moment. And you'll shortly see where that is. But nevertheless, I am joined by two great luminaries of the magazine and the podcast and all the other stuff we do. On my right, I have Dr. Roshni Homer.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, and in the middle of my screen, I have, somewhat enveloped in darkness, the lovely Lee Grant.
It was 2019 was the last time that you did a one-off that wasn't the Christmas quiz, and before that it was 2015. So you do sort of spring up a couple of times a decade.
I can't believe you had that to hand.
I knew it was going to come up.
Fair enough. All right, well, just to make the most of this momentous occasion, I'm going to introduce the first story myself, which is yesterday, Google I.O. happened, probably a couple of days actually, but yesterday all the big stuff was announced, everything which Google is going to change the world with in the coming year, is their plan at least. So let's talk about some of the stuff they unveiled. The first one, you might have seen in the headlines this is a new, you will not be shocked to hear, AI-powered feature, but it's coming right for the classic, the core of Google's business now, AI search mode. It's going to be a new tab where instead of a classic, just you type in your keywords and it comes back with some pages, it will be more of a conversational style. You'll say, I'm looking for where I can put my cat while I'm away, and it will say, okay, what dates are you away, and whereabouts are you going, and what are your requirements, and you'll chat with it, and it will give you information and also lots of links as it goes, is the idea. We haven't had a chance to try this yet, but I believe it's going to be rolled out for everybody in the US on an experimental basis. Oh, and also it's going to be able to do intelligent things with data. So you could say, I'm thinking of going camping, what's a good time to do it? And it could come back with a graph rather than just saying July's nice. So this really is kind of a first, I think, really serious attempt at properly transforming, not just sticking AI stuff into, but properly transforming the search experience. Now, Roche, I can see you nodding along skeptically. So what do you reckon?
No, I like it. It's just ChatGPT does a lot of this stuff already. So, and also I think a little bit of competition is healthy. I was a big fan of Google. I think we need to start to wrestle some of the activity away from Google, because this is a lot of information for them to have. Like, so for example, that your cat example, then that means that sort of like, categories in your district will need to push their calendar up through Google. And it's just like, man, this could be so open to exploitation. And then it's like, remember what happened with Amazon? Amazon was like a shopping platform, and then say somebody was selling widgets. Okay. And then the next thing is Amazon are like, you know what? We produce our own widgets, because they could see, because they had access to all of the sales data. And it's just like, that means that the tendrils, if that's a word, I think it is, but you know what I mean? Like it's just that every aspect of our commercial world will have that link in, and then that feedback mechanism and the collating of all of that data, the intelligence that Google is then able to determine based on that, that worries me from like a small business perspective.
Okay. I mean, as an optimist, I like to think that if every category actually had their availability diary online in some, open format, that would be fantastic. And it wouldn't just be Google that could make use of it. It could be the competition. But I don't know. Sorry, Lee, I'm shutting you out of the category discussion. What do you think?
I have got a dog.
Oh, well then, sorry, we'll better move on.
No, but Roche is right. Because this also plays through to the rest of the Google I/O presentation, because the more you look at some of these features, the more it's about, it will do this if you give us this. And they do occasionally drop into the presentation. I think it was nearly 2 hours, this whole thing. With your permission, we can do this. There was an app where basically it will, if you post a photograph of yourself and say, I want to buy this dress, it will put you in the dress. But of course it needs to know your sizes and things to be able to do that, and your location, so it can get the nearest shops. It's about them, they need a lot of your data to do it, and you'd argue they've already got enough of it. But what I thought was interesting about going back to the AI for search, it made me think, there's a couple of things that horrified me, but the first thing I thought was, I probably still search the net in the same way that I did 20 years ago, which is trying to think of which keywords will surface a decent result. So utilizing AI, and as Jeff Campbell has just said on Discord, he now uses Perplexity to do this, and I tend to do the same. Using AI really does open up that sort of more sort of natural language sort of searches, but particularly for me, some of the restrictive options, which are sometimes hard to put into a command string, like saying I don't want to see these sources because I know they're garbage. So there possibly is something in this moving on from the way that we do search, because but there's still a lot of questions which no doubt we'll get to in a second.
Yes. Sorry, Roche, were you raising your hand or swatting a fly?
No, swatting a fly.
Apologies. All right. Well, since you mentioned, Lee, the access to your data, why don't we deviate a little bit from the strict order I put out and skip ahead to point 1D, which is Gmail. For a little while now, Gmail has been suggesting responses to messages. If it reads something and it thinks, it thinks someone is sending you a useful attachment, it can suggest you want to say, okay, thanks, or got it, or whatever. This is going to get a lot more intelligent, because already they've expanded it with the ability to pick up on what's going on in the whole thread of the conversation. So if someone sends you a short reply saying no, you can, Google should be able to suggest whether a response would be "that's a shame" or "delighted to hear it." It's not always great at that, but anyway, now it's going to get much smarter, because it's going to be, with your permission, allowed to read all of your Gmail correspondence with this person. I'm not sure if it includes correspondence with other people, but I would guess it would, because that would also be very valuable context. And it can even pick up data from your Google Drive. So if somebody, if I get an email from Tim saying, is that feature ready yet? It can suggest I'm 3/4 of the way through it, or whatever, as a completion. Does that scare you, Lee?
Well, I was going to say, unless you're doing your document for Tim on Google Docs, in which case it says, actually, he's only 3 paragraphs in, Tim. Ignore everything he says. I have to say, out of all the points that we're going to have a chat through, this is the bit that's the biggest red flag for me, because under no way at all will I let it anywhere near my email and my correspondence. Having worked in an office where occasionally people replied on the behalf of other people, I've seen what happens when people are not always fully in control of their responses that have got their name on it. So I think this is going to be the biggest hurdle, I think, or one of the biggest hurdles for me with AI. But I can appreciate the technology, but they really do want to sort of just look at everything. And, I suppose when you're on the Google platform, there's a bell in the back of your head saying, well, they're already looking at everything, so what's the difference? But this makes me really, really twitchy, but I appreciate that is only me.
Well, I bet it's not only you. I see Roche making notes.
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? When you have a contract, you have the four corners of the document, but beyond the four corners of the document, you have representations which may have been material for one of the party to engage in the contract. It could be the case, as per Lee's suggestion, that there is a part of that dialogue, that communication, would give rise to something that then induced a party into a contract that is signed separately. And then when it all goes sideways, they say, well, actually, in this communication, this is what you said, and that was the material in inducement. And then the courts are just going to have like zero time for someone saying, it was not me, it was the computer. And I can just see on the horizon so many problems. I don't understand. Look, if you have chat to my bot at gmail.com, cool, have at it. But if it's your name on the tin, it should be you in the tin. You should have read the email. You should have understood it. I'm not saying you don't use shortcuts. Like, who amongst us hasn't like reworked an email before by copying and pasting sections? For example, you know, great to hear from you. Hope you're well. That kind of stuff, you know. But if it goes to like anything that's material to the communication, then if your name is on it, it should be you, I think.
Well, we shall see whether, well, we'll see whether that happens, but also we'll see whether we can tell once we start to receive these AI-generated messages, I would imagine.
Got it.
Something completely different was demonstrated, or at least promised, is the latest news on Project Astra, which is Google's. I think it's like not ever supposed to be fully productized as one thing. I think it's more their research into a truly smart interactive assistant. Project Astra now, well, previously you could wave your phone around and get information about your environment, but the latest development is that Project Astra is going to be able to proactively comment on what you show it. And indeed, if it's partnered with something like smart glasses, in the future, it could be able to proactively comment on what you are seeing and what you are doing. Some of the examples that were given were if Astra is switched on while you're doing your homework, it might nudge you to say you just made a mistake there. Or if you are following a diet where you only eat at certain times, it might learn that, or you might have taught it, and it would remind you to do so without your having to have any, without your manually setting up that reminder. So they're kind of laying the groundwork for a much more, well, they use the word proactive assistant, which you can really have a dialogue with, which isn't necessarily prompted by you. And I feel like that really does kind of change the way that you might interact with computers in general. What could they make you do? What could they, by omission, perhaps be even blamed for not encouraging you to do? Well, Lee, again, I see you furrowed your brow. So.
Well, yeah, because with a lot of this presentation, they were launching lots of different bits, of which Project Astra was one. And I started to get quite confused about how these all link together as what you buy as a commercial product. Because, again, it's Project Astra, which, if you know what that is, it means something to you. But most of these other things that came in the announcement have got strange names like Donkey and Artillery or Yeo or whatever it is. You've no idea what it is. And different packages, oh, well, if you buy this, you can have donkey horseradish for free and stuff like that, and you've no idea what any of this stuff does. So you can very much sort of lose your way of how these things are actually going to work in the real world. But going back to the Project Astra and the visual search, they right at the end of the towards the end of the presentation, they showed off a couple of VR headsets, one a bit like the Vision Pro, and one which is very much Google Glass, and they tried to basically do some of this Project Astra live on the stage. And car crash is the word that I would use, and it just shows that how brilliant potentially this sort of technology could be, but still actually how really difficult it is to pull off, because if you can't get it to work in the Google Theatre, how's the demo? How's it going to work out in a field when you've got no broadband to get it to work? So again, it looks great when it works, but it was obvious even just in their demo, it's really got some problems. But as the way that it's literally scooping your data. I mean, I still get laptops in where people have got a plaster over the webcam because they don't want to be seen, and people got so excited. It's true, and people get so excited about what is Alexa doing. Fundamentally, this thing is just listening and watching constantly to what you're doing, and we've got to be okay with that, I guess.
Roche?
So I was interested because I haven't seen it, but I was interested because Lee said that during the demo you could see it was glitchy, something to that effect. That's not great. Like when you're demoing something, you want it to be slick, you want it to be smooth, you want it to put its best foot forward. If you're coming to market with something that can't pass the demo, I think that there's probably a lot more problems that we can't foresee right now on the horizon for that product.
Well, it's interesting that during this whole presentation, there was so much that we didn't see. There was so much that here's a new product, this is what it can do, but fundamentally what you're watching behind you is a PowerPoint presentation. Obviously it's not Microsoft. Oh, wouldn't it be nice if it was Microsoft PowerPoint Google were using? There was very little real tangible thing. There's a lot of coming soon. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. There was a brilliant 3D camera thing that they were trying to show, but we never saw one, or even two, to make it work. There was a lot of smoke and mirrors in this whole presentation, but that's certainly what I thought anyway.
I will stick up, for Google a little bit, because I think this Project Astra is expressly not productized yet. This is not, they're not saying we're going to install this on your phone next week. This has been and still is a bit of a showcase of what they're working on. And I do quite like the idea that there's some blue sky stuff here which might not be ready this year, might not be ready next year, but they're thinking a little bit longer term than just whatever, is going to be plumbed into the next edition of Android. So we'll support them at least on that, even if the actual feature itself I'm a bit iffy about. Sorry, Roche, I think you were about to...
No. I mean, they're all really good points. So if it's not a product and it's glitchy, then, I take it all back. I thought they're kind of ready to go to market and they're showcasing it, but then it just I don't know.
Well, fair enough.
It's interesting. Yeah.
There's plenty more to we could very easily spend an entire podcast just discussing what happened, but let's not. Let's just talk about the new AI filmmaking tool that they unveiled. Now, this I think is coming out in the foreseeable future, and I was quite interested in this because we've all seen, I think, things that can do text to video. You type in Bill Clinton jumping into a lake or whatever, and it will give you some sort of approximation. And through the iterations, the president will get more lifelike, and the water will behave more naturally. But this is a whole new thing, as far as I'm aware. I haven't come across anything like this because it can do audio as well. And also there's an idea which I really love. It's probably not super new. I haven't been following this myself, this particular industry, but I was very interested to hear nevertheless that as well as text to video, it has a feature called ingredients to video, where you can give it your own picture or your own assets, your own bit of movie, and say, change it, combine them, do this with them to make this. And obviously this raises even greater concerns about what's real and what's not than we've already had. But also I think it's starting to get to a point where you really can, in the way that you can now knock up a quick AI generated image for fun, or to showcase an idea, or just to make a birthday card or a poster without paying someone who probably deserves to be paid. Now you can do the same thing with video clips, or at least you will be able to, if this is all it's cracked up to be. Roche, do you reckon that's a step forward?
Yeah, I do, and I like it. And I'm old enough to remember when the move from film to Betacam and onto digital, and then people were going around shooting on 35mm. So you were sending out your photojournalists and stuff like that. They were shooting on film. It was really laborious, and then you would have to then ship it, DHL it or whatever. Then it would have to be all printed up. And you might have nothing. Suddenly you've got digital, and I remember people saying, oh, it's going to completely destroy photography, and it didn't. It augmented it and it enhanced it, and we have just got such an amazing sort of archive of the last 20 years because of the progression in digital. I see this as a net positive to storytelling. So, like, you know, if you're new and you're an entrant, you don't really have anything stopping you. I'm waiting for the first, like, okay, like, you know, I mean, the Oscars are just ridiculous because the stuff that is nominated is just, who watches it really, you know? But there are going to be awards for, like, you know, the first film under like 100,000. We're seeing like all of these blockbusters, 200 million. You're like, where is the money actually going in these things? Especially because of the developments of technology. And I think it's super exciting for anybody who's starting out, because I think it's a leveler, and it opens it up to everyone. And I also, by the way, love the idea. It used to be, if I had an idea for a image for a presentation, I would have to speak to someone. They would invariably, or I would miscommunicate it, and so then your reiterations and stuff, and you could be talking 6 weeks. Not anymore, sunshine. You know, it's minutes, if not hours, and I can turn around stuff like really quickly. I love this idea, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
I really like that idea of AI as a leveler, because we always focus on the way it maybe sort of cheapens or diminishes the accomplishments and achievements of highly skilled individuals, but it does also raise the lower level of what someone can do without that skill and that investment. And there is certainly a long case, a long argument, which let's not have, that we're all better off for it. Lee, you're going to be making the next Star Trek film?
I'll give it a go.
Well, you can now, yeah.
Well, this is it. It just take me about 40 years to render it. I mean, there's some really smart stuff going on here, and the scientific part of my brain, which is very small, is genuinely floored by what they've showed. As you said, they showed a few different things, particularly something called Flow, which is their AI filmmaking tool. And I really wanted to try that, but it's not available in the UK at the moment. And that's taken... that is basically video only, but they've had a version of that for a while. Again, I can't remember what that was called, because they've all got silly names. Carrot, probably. And then so you generate your film, and you can do it in so many ways, but they're now getting the editing parts of it where, you know, you generate a bit of a clip, and then you can pull the timeline back and say, actually, now change it to this, and do it halfway through, and it's generative, it can do that. What we don't know yet is how long this takes to generate these things, and also, you know, at the moment, it's about continuity. My little time in television and drama, you know, the continuity person go, no, the handbag's on the left shoulder and stuff like that. It's all that little stuff which isn't there yet at the moment, so you can sort of pretty much spot this sort of stuff, but it's not hard to see how this is going to really change what we see. And it's also you can't avoid, it's going to put some people out of work as well. It's going to put a lot of people out of work, particularly in things like the advert industry, because, you know, that's what they live on at the moment. You know, those people that make a lot of money making the adverts that we see on TVs and movie theaters. You know, this is absolutely straight out the bag for this sort of stuff, because it's harder to make a 4-hour epic on it. But if you just want to make a 15-second TV ad, you know, you're in possibly very quickly here. So I think it's interesting to me as a user. If I was in the creative industry, I would be worried about where my next paycheck will be coming from in a year.
Okay, I've noticed we've spent about 20 minutes talking about this, and it's always me who complains when we overrun. So just one last thing, I'll just quickly mention it and then we'll move on. I think we can all agree this is a good thing. Chrome, the browser, is going to at last gain the ability to not only tell you that your passwords have been compromised, but to actually change them for you. Websites which support this, well, I guess it's going to be an API, will have the ability, you'll just be able to click a button in Chrome and it will say, okay, we've created a new secure password and we've saved it in your account. Now, I said we would just quickly mention this, but Lee has been shaking his head so energetically, I feel we need to hear what he has to say.
If Chrome can pull this off, I'll give them £1, because I think this is genuinely useful. Absolutely. But it's been tried before by other password managers. Dashlane used to do it and they pulled theirs. I also vaguely remember LastPass doing it with some of their stuff. But the reason it's a really difficult trick to pull off, particularly in the world of 2FA, where you can't change your password unless you got a code from your phone or it phones your grandmother or stuff like that. And also, so many websites have different parameters for their passwords, 12 characters, no dollar signs, restricted word lists and all that, and you've used that password before. If they can do this, brilliant. But others have tried and failed.
All right. And Roche, I saw you noting.
Yeah, so if they can do it, then it seems to me that you could force the computer to do it, and then you could essentially lock somebody out of their own stuff, right? So
Yep.
now all you need, and that's problematic.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about potential safeguards and so on, but let's not, because as I say, we've been on Google for 25 minutes now, which is probably more than they deserve. And there is another a completely unrelated story which only has a touch of AI in it, and it's with you, Roche.
Is this the Johnny Ive
That's right.
story?
Sorry, was
Okay,
I too
great.
cryptic?
No, no, I just I've lost the thread. Okay, so so this is really interesting. There was an article, I think it might have been yesterday, and Johnny Ive started a business called IO. It was funded by Steve Jobs' wife, Lauren Powell Jobs, and ChatGPT, who owned part of it, have just now bought it out, so they own it in its entirety. It's really interesting because, well, first of all, the story, the sort of the subtext is Apple's former chief designer hits out at legacy products. And of course, that's just a sort of a soupçon of controversy to get this landed, right? This story landed. And then it's like, really, legacy products? You know what's a legacy product? The wheel. You can't improve on perfection, you know. And then and so what they're going to do, what ChatGPT, Sam Altman, no stranger to controversy himself, Google it, and what Johnny Ive are going to do is that they're going to but they've designed a prototype for this kind of AI tool. We don't know what it's going to do, but it's a device that you're going to be able to transport and bring with you, and apparently it's amazing. So I see a couple of problems with this. So first of all, Johnny Ive has a very distinctive look, and that is that is just intermingled with what Apple looks like, and those products are beautiful. But if the IO ChatGPT product looks anything like the Apple product, well, let battle commence. I think that they could be in kind of hot water. And I think that was pretty much it. Oh, and the article mentioned as well that OpenAI had stolen a march, and they have absolutely first mover advantage. But look, we've seen this 100 times before, where you have the first mover advantage. They put in a huge amount of research. They, exhaust their resources, and then somebody is able to learn from their mistakes. And then the next iteration of something is really sophisticated. So I don't think you shouldn't discount Apple. Oh, and then finally as well, so Apple dropped 19%. Sorry.
19?
Yeah, since January when
Oh,
Trump
right. I thought
introduced
you meant on this news. I was going to say that's...
No, 2% on this news, but 19% since January because of the tariffs. But so then that raises the question. So first of all, I'm really interested to see the design that I was going to come up with. And then the other thing is, it's like, how are they going to execute on this? Where is it going to be manufactured? Where is it going to be assembled? Because the reason that Apple has dropped 19% is because of the issues with China. And I can't think of an alternative place that could, reasonably manufacture it so that it's lucrative enough for a business, unless the heartlands of America suddenly, build a factory and get to it.
I like your
Making
forward-looking attitude. We don't know what it is, but the important thing is, where's it going to be manufactured?
Well, I mean, where is it going to? Because it's obviously going to be deep tech, right? And it's going to need chips, and we've got there's a whole load of issues that I can just foresee from in execution and manufacturing, and I'm just really interested to see how they overcome them.
Yeah, and it's interesting for OpenAI because they've, although they're best known for ChatGPT, in recent months we've talked about them considering setting up a social network. They mentioned they'd be interested in buying Chrome if Google is broken up. So they obviously have like eyes on being the next Apple-style behemoth. Lee, are you excited about Johnny Ive's mysterious AI project? Or
I
anything
just hope
else?
I hope he just does a better job this time, because some will remember him as perhaps one of the greatest visual designers of the early 21st century tech, while others remember him as the bloke that normalised unrepairable boxes of glue that led to the fastest growing waste stream on the planet,
I wonder which you are.
causing huge environmental damage. Absolutely, Darren. So, it's either 3 cheers for Johnny Ive or a slow hand clap. I'll leave that down to our listeners to decide.
Do we think the idea of a personal AI device has legs? Because, I mean, we've had the Rabbit and we've had the Humane Pin, and they were both dreadful. I don't know. I mean, I feel like Can you visualize how it might work, either of you?
No, I thought, is it a head?
Sorry.
No, but I was thinking, like, what is this thing going to look like? Is it going to be like a head that you can carry around with you, like under your arm? Like, oh, hey, look at this.
Zaphod Beeblebrox.
Yeah. Is it a headless horseman or is it a Zaphod Beeblebrox design? It's like the clamshell tablet debate.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, it's going to be a camera and an aerial. But the 2 products that you mentioned, I think basically when people got them open, they found it was just full of sweets and sawdust, wasn't it? There wasn't really a lot in there. So, the bar is still quite low on this. So, there's a chance they might come up with something half decent.
Well, it makes sense for there to be not a lot in there because, I mean, the amount of processing power you're going to need to do a decent job of this has to be in the cloud. So you'd want something as lightweight as possible just to get the battery life good, I would have thought, but I don't know. Anyway, as I say, we ate up lots of time talking about Google products that will probably never see the light of day, and if they do, we'll hate them. So, if you don't mind, let us move on to another terrible idea, which is YouTube's latest initiative for adverts. Lee.
Absolutely. Now, YouTube has revealed a new advert format. During its recent upfront presentation, it showcased something called Peak Points. Now, this unsubtle naming is because the technology uses, no surprise here, Google Gemini AI to analyse the video you're watching and then identify moments in it that it believes will have the highest viewer engagement or perhaps emotional resonance to identify the peak point. Get it? Okay. Now, once these had been identified, the system suggests placing an advert right after that peak point, to really heighten the mood. So peak point aims to benefit advertisers. Note, not the poor viewer trying to view a patio furniture video while getting bombarded by crypto stuff. I'm getting crypto constantly at the moment. They couldn't have got it more wrong. And as you've probably guessed, this tactic aims to grab user attention when they're most invested in the content, which sounds to me like a great innovation designed by someone who makes money for YouTube rather than watches YouTube. Because it seems that Peak Points is possibly another floater in Google's cesspit of emotional-based targeting, where advertisers place adverts that align with emotions evoked by the video. And the theory being that when viewers experience emotional states, we'll recall the adverts that we're shown. But I guess no matter how they do it, it comes back to the old perennial problem. Who is buying the advert space and how will that impact the effects of what it's trying to achieve? Ad buyers always do want sort of metrics and targets, but given the rules and conditions about what information can be harvested to user profiles, what we were talking about earlier a little bit, analysing the advert seems quite a neat technical solution around that sort of information, because they can basically do this on knowing nothing about you. They'll just make the judgment call of when to drop the ad based on purely the video that they've watched in micro time before you. So there's no date, or was it 20? No, that was another one. No, that's the next one. There's no sort of confirmed date for this, but if you suddenly start seeing an advert for Pringles right after the huge explosion, you know what's going on here.
I was going to say, I mean, they haven't shared with us, as far as I know, an example of what exactly they're visualizing. They haven't said whether you'll be watching a guide on how to change the tire on your bike, and the idea is at the end you'll be so relieved at having this information that you'll be delighted to book a holiday in Center Parcs or whatever. Unless I'm mistaken, it's all been very vague at the moment.
It does seem, vague is the word. I mean, as a as an advertising idea of how to do it. I suppose that's the exciting bit, the fact that they reckon they can identify these peak points. But we know from certain other podcasts that are not too careful about where their auto podcaster software drops an advert. You often get people in the middle of a speech and suddenly there's an advert for Bet365 or whatever going on right in the middle. So the algorithm doesn't always get this right, particularly with. It'd be interesting. Is it working on the voice? Is it working on the soundtrack? Is it working on some sort of AI visual thing? Yeah, lots of questions.
I love the way you bring that up at precisely 33 minutes into this episode of the podcast.
Oh yeah, we better get it right this week.
Yes, we had. Roche, are you looking forward to being sold to at your peak points?
No, and I don't know who conceived of this, but it just seems. I'm not saying it's not. They're not dumber than a box of rocks. That would be unkind. But if you're going to watch something, you're going to go onto YouTube and elect and select to watch something. Having an advert just at that point where you want that piece of information, I don't think that people will have a favorable view of the brand if you cut them off. I don't think I'm that different to everybody else out there, but if you're watching something and then suddenly as you're coming to the piece of information that you want, you get dropped an ad. That would not only turn me off the show, it would turn me off putting on YouTube, which by the way they're doing a really great job anyway with their adverts at the moment. So
I must admit,
I feel like sorry.
No, I was going to say I must admit I'm increasingly using a piece of software called VidProc, which is basically a YouTube downloader. And if there's something I want to watch of a great length of time, I'll just go and watch it offline. And I apologise profusely to the people of the video who will miss out on my half a cent that they'll get for my one view. But I'm sorry. It's either I watch it or I do not watch it at all.
For what it's worth, that model that you describe, Roche, of where you're just getting to the good bit and then you have an advert, I feel like the web in general, the text web, has already succumbed very much to that with the lengthy, all the preamble you have to get through. You'll Google what time is the Eurovision Song Contest on, and first page, here's everything you need to know about the Eurovision Song Contest time, etc. And there's 8 paragraphs with ads in between before you actually get to the 8 o'clock bit at the bottom.
Which is why go straight to ChatGPT. There's my ad for ChatGPT. I'm telling you, man, it doesn't mess you around. It gets straight to the point. And if it doesn't answer the question directly, you can just gently nudge it and say, could you answer my question? And then it will apologize to you and answer your question. It's brilliant.
I do think, to be fair, we are a particular sort of YouTube user and a particular sort of internet user. And I will sort of cite the example of my 9-year-old daughter who has YouTube on as kind of more of a background is too passive, but she's not actively sitting and staring at it either. There's content on there, some of which will draw her in, and she'll go, oh yeah, I'm interested in this, and she'll watch it for a bit, and then maybe she'll do something else. And it's kind of keeping her company while we're too busy working to do proper parenting. And it does have adverts on, I'm sad to say, and I can actually see how on an impressionable, a younger mind which hasn't come there specifically to watch one video for one purpose. This might work better. But it does feel like, Lee mentioned it's something that you'd describe as something to excite people who make money off YouTube rather than people who watch it. And it seems like this announcement it shouldn't have been made public. It should have been targeted quietly at the advertisers, and we should have been left to determine for ourselves whether it annoys us too much or not.
Do you want me to go on to the Netflix one if you want true horror?
Oh yes,
yeah.
True horror.
There you go. So Netflix is also stepping up its use in its ads, but generative AI. Now, in a presentation to advertisers, Netflix announced that it's created mid-roll ads and pause ads. So for those of you who don't know what a mid-roll is, basically that's something that goes in the middle of the show, and a pause ad is when you hit the pause button. Now, these ads are going to incorporate generative AI, and subscribers can expect to start seeing these new types in 2026. Now, Amy Reinhard, Netflix's president of advertising, there you go, that's posh. She told Media Play New members pay as much attention to mid-roll ads as they do to the shows and movies themselves, which is possibly true, and ironically isn't a great advert for the quality of Netflix programming, I thought, as a statement, but there you go. Anyway, what are AI-powered interactive mid-roll and pause ads? I hear you all scream. So these new ad formats will use generative AI to integrate ads into show environments. So advertisers will be able to enable overlays, call to actions, and screen buttons. So basically, if you imagine a scene with a street scene and there's a giant Coca-Cola sign, they could sort of lace that with press this and you'll get a Coca-Cola. It's that sort of affair. And the AI framework allows basically dynamic, creative customization in real time. Whether that means there's some poor swine back at the studio desperately pressing buttons like some sort of Rachmaninoff, who knows? But anyway, time will tell. These formats roll out in all countries. You'll be pleased to know people that are on Netflix ad-supported plan.
Well, that does sound thoroughly dystopian. And as Ian Clark points out on Discord, I'm sorry, Discord, as I know I haven't been citing you as much as I should. I promise I do love you. When I pause content, that's generally a sign that I do not want to be interacting with my TV at that moment. Otherwise, I just continue watching it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Got one more double. Oh, sorry, Roche.
Yeah, sorry. No, this is to the Netflix thing. So this is what happened with Netflix. They drew us in with like the promise of sort of streamed TV with no ads. And then the offer was, come to us, pay us £15 and you can have like whatever 5 licenses and you have no ads. And now suddenly, sorry, wait, what? Now it's like, pay us the 15 and deal with the ads. I mean, if it wasn't rude, I would get up now and cancel my Netflix subscription, because I'm just not like, there's absolutely no way I'm paying for ads. Like the TV license, we you got the BBC, but then we don't have ads. And okay, we get all of the ITV stuff, but then you have to put up with the ads, but you're not really paying for that separately. But wait, sorry. So Netflix, this has really wound me up. Netflix want your money and your attention for the ads. No, Netflix, like, no.
Does Amazon Prime do the same thing now?
It does, yes. I
but I don't pay.
No,
but I don't pay for
it is a classic bait and switch, though, isn't it?
Well, I justified, because the thing about Amazon Prime is I sort of justified that to myself, because when I first joined Amazon Prime, there was no video. It was a bonus. So the fact that the bonus has got a little bit worse, I find a lot easier to swallow than, as Roche says, with Netflix, it was supposed to be a true on-demand service, and I certainly wasn't demanding ads. But again, sorry, it's another one that will run and run.
Sorry, no, but I completely agree. So with Amazon Prime, you pay so that you don't have to then pay for the post. And if you get a lot of books delivered, it actually works out over the year. It's a much better deal than paying for your postage. And so then the TV is just it's a perk,
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's how I see it.
Give me your ads. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But I'm not paying. Sorry, just so we're clear, I'm not paying and watching your ads. Like, no. Okay,
all right, I think we're clear. Amazon, you got that? No, Netflix, you got that. Good. Roche, please take us home, which is to say, finish off the main stories section of this week's podcast with some more stuff about your friend and mine, Mr. AI.
Yeah, so these are two quite interesting stories. Well, one of them is a bit of a nothing burger. I'm going to start with that one. Okay, so this is that professors are using ChatGPT and not all students are thrilled. So this is a story about a young student, Ella Stapleton. She was a senior at Northwestern, and she filed a complaint after discovering her professor had used ChatGPT to tidy up a class presentation. The complaint has like 2 main points. 1, that it violated the rules on academic dishonesty, and 2, it accused the professor of hypocrisy. Let's just break this down. So first, the academic honesty rules don't apply to professors, they apply to students as they're submitting work, and so you can't just take any old document and use that as you can't weaponize that. And the second thing as well is that the professor had been teaching for 20 years, so to say that this presentation had been written up by ChatGPT is an overreach. No, it was just tidying it up. So yeah, look, I love AI for this kind of stuff. There's just a lot of stuff that it doesn't matter where you get it from. So, for example, if we were like talking about contract law, I would say under the law of England and Wales, contracts are can be formed when you meet three elements: consideration, intention to create legal relations, and agreement. I don't own that piece of information. That's out there for the whole world. If I get it from ChatGPT, it doesn't matter. And so, a lot of the substantive stuff that you're teaching at undergraduate level is just kind of like widely known and understood. And so, yeah, it doesn't matter. And then anyway, the issue about hypocrisy, well, no, because professors are operating in the same space, but not in the same league. So they can actually do other stuff. And this is why I'm saying it's kind of a nothing burger and it's dressed up like it's an AI story, but actually it's really just a story of a misunderstanding about who can do what and what you're allowed to do, and
what the purpose is of their being in that class. I mean, the roles are very different. I would say you're not paying for a professor, you're not paying your tuition fees for a professor to handwrite the notes. You're paying for a professor to know which keywords to put into the machine and to check the output and confirm it's academically valid.
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of a bit of a storm in a teacup. It would be, I think it's sort of the equivalent to somebody maybe like 25 years ago saying, oh no, they used Clippy to spell check, or, no. Yeah, so and then that's one AI story. And then the other AI story is that AI is more persuasive than humans in online debates. But this is only half true. Is this the one I should be doing now? Anyway, yeah. I will. Okay. All right, okay. So the article starts with a really dramatic: chatbots are more persuasive than people in online debates. But then, almost like an afterthought, it says, especially when they can personalize their arguments using information about their opponent. Let's fix this. It's not especially, it's only. AI only wins when it has personal data to work with. Otherwise, humans and chatbots are exactly the same. So according to the study, when neither debater had access to any background, they were neck and neck. So equally persuasive. And then they just needed very little demographic information. So age, sex, educational level, simple stuff that you would see on your social media bio. The computational scientist who ran this study for the Swiss Federal Technology Institute of Lausanne, who co-authored the study, pointed out that the data was minimal. But none of this is surprising. So, like, we've seen this before. We've seen it with Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, and we know that when you know a bit about your audience, we see it with jury selection in the United States. And so, yeah, so AI might be persuasive, but it's only if it's got a bit of information about you. But that absolutely chimes with everything we know about delivering an argument anyway. So it's new, but not new.
Lee, have you won any arguments with AIs lately?
No. It was quite refreshing to hear Roche say that basically when you give it nothing, everything is all unequal. So no, I have nothing to add on that. I think Roche summed that up lovely.
Fair enough. It was a very nice summing up. The only thing I would add is that I'm sure these debates were carried out in very respectable circumstances, but actual online debates are very scrappy and ill-informed, and I can easily imagine that an AI would do well just because you can't bait an AI in the way you can a human.
Yeah, I agree. So sorry, no, you're 100% right. So what the article doesn't cover, and maybe you need to go to like the primary source for this, is like how the debate was structured. So they said that they had 900 participants, and it's like, well, that's 900 participants who actively want to participate in a debate, not 900 participants who find themselves suddenly in a debate on a topic. And then it's like, well, who then selected? Because some debates are just like, they're kind of obvious, right? You know, like school uniforms, or you don't get exercised over them, and so if you change position, it's not a big deal. So I think it's not new, and it's not revealing, and it's not novel, and it's not anything we haven't known before.
Great, so a perfect candidate for the PC Pro podcast. Let us move on to some nibs. First one I'm going to tell you about. I've been saying for ages, I wish Microsoft would knuckle down and properly use AI to make the operating system really smart and learn how you work and learn how to preempt what you want to do and so on. It hasn't done that, but what it is doing is it's plumbing more of its existing AI tools into Windows 11. So future versions of the File Explorer will let you right-click on a file and, for example, get an AI-generated summary of its contents, if it's a word processing document, or apply image processing routines to it, if it's a picture, and so forth. And I guess this is fine. It's really not going to persuade me to use Windows 11 on any occasion when I wouldn't have used it anyway, but it's the gradual march of progress. What do we have next? Lee?
Good news for Washingtonians. This week, Washington Governor Bob Ferguson signed the Right to Repair Act into law. This is the 6th US state to pass laws relating to the diagnosis, repair of digital electronic products. The bigger picture here, of course, is always to try and normalise repair and to try and reduce e-waste. Now, Washington's Right to Repair is pretty much a carbon copy of Oregon and Colorado, so effective from 1st of January 2026, OEMs must provide independent repair providers and product owners with access, parts, tools, documentation, all that sort of stuff. Once again, there is also the ban on parts pairing, and one of the main vocal opponents to parts pairing was Stephen Nicol from Google. He heads up Google's consumer devices. I had the great pleasure of interviewing him a few weeks ago, and he's very nice. He used to do, he was VP for Sony Vaio laptops back in the day. So basically, him coming out to bat and to fair Microsoft is starting to sort of really sort of change the momentum for right to repair legislation. It really does change the minds of the state legislators who make these decisions. So big congratulations to the team, including Nathan Proctor and Catherine Horvath from PIRG, and a small army who've worked to get this one across the line. And onwards to number 7.
Yes, congratulations indeed. Now, Roche, this one is not congratulations.
No, this is Chicago Sun-Times have egg on their face after they published an advertorial summer reading list containing at least 10 fake books. So the newspaper had an uncredited summer reading list, recommended titles from real authors, Isabel Allende, Maggie O'Farrell, Andy Weir, but the titles didn't exist. The man behind this work of fiction, a guy called Marco Buscaglia, Marco admitted to using AI. He put the list together and he said, I do use AI for background at times, but always check the material first, followed by, this time I did not. So,
that sort of always.
No, yeah, exactly. So, no. So he's either feeding us a load of porky pies or he doesn't understand what always means, but neither of those is a good look. But the problem isn't AI, this is ethics. In kind of the same way that the other problem with the professor wasn't really about AI, it was just about a misunderstanding. This is about ethics. Marco didn't just use AI to create a list, and this is the problem, I think, with this. It's that he recommended novels that he didn't read. That's the issue, right? And so, and the only reason we know he didn't read them is because they didn't exist, which then makes me think, how many recommendations of books have I read? Do you know what I mean? How many books have I read based on the recommendations and actually they haven't been read by the person who recommended them at all? Which, by the way, explains, Mark Kermode one time recommended a book and it begins with a B. Oh, and it's terrible. It is like, it's the worst 2 hour. It's just a complete waste of time. Anyway, this isn't about tech. It's about trust.
Yes. Well, this is the whole best of lists is always a thing. Just to mention that if any of you has seen my wife, Lisa Smith's review of the best hair curling products in The Guardian, I can assure you she tested every single one of them. It took forever. The house was full of smell of burning hair. It's full of boxes. So please buy one of those things if you have any hair that needs curling or straightening. Apparently they're both a thing, because I really would like our suffering to have been for something. And on to the final nib. This is Intel. You will remember Lip Bhutan took over from Pat Gelsinger a couple of months ago now, and has been quite ruthlessly working on reorganizing and restructuring the business to bring it back into its leadership position is the goal. They're thinking about now selling off networking. I myself have a networking, an Intel, I should say, wireless card in many of my laptops. I think many of us do, but they've decided that's not the core business. So in future, it may be that those are, well, I don't know who they're going to sell it to. Maybe AMD, maybe OpenAI would like to branch out into that. Who knows? Anyway. Oh, sorry, Roche, yes.
Can I just, yeah, sorry, it's Babadook. It's just like the worst film. That's all.
Okay, right, there we go. Lee, you've been patient while I explained all of that. Explained is probably a rather generous way of describing what I've been doing. So why don't you take us home with the hot hardware candidate of this week, which I believe, but is it some kind of enormous log that you have to throw as far as you can?
This is absolutely, it is a caber for tossing. It is called the Caber Q. CABERQU, and of course the people in good people in Discord are going to want me to post a link, and I just realized I've run out of hands, so
I'll find one.
Someone will sort that out, I'm sure. Basically, I'm going to hold this up to the camera so people can see it, which doesn't help if you're only listening to this on audio, but if you follow us on YouTube, you'll see it. Basically, it's a very small, thin little device. It is about just smaller than a pack of cards. I was going to say cigarettes, but you're not allowed to do that anymore. You see the price of cigarettes. Amazing, anyone can do it. Anyway, this job, the Caber Q's job, very simply, is to test USB-C cables. That's all it does. It's really nothing flash or fancy. It gives things like charging power, data speed, cable health, a few other bits and bobs. It hasn't got a battery, so it needs a 5-volt input, so that's why it's dangling off my my cable here. But very simply, let me plug in a cable, and I mean, this is a great demonstration for an audio podcast, I feel. always good to have a visual demonstration. Here we go. Right, so basically it's got 2 USB ports on the north and south pole. It will sit and analyze the cable for 2 minutes, and then it will come up with a nice little, one thing I haven't said to people listening, it's got an LCD screen in it that's got some details. And your first screen, it's got some very nice little graphics that give you ideas about sort of data speed, charging power, and the cable health. And then there's some, up in the corners, some little menu buttons. And if you sort of flick along, you then get some other graphics about what sort of the specification of the cable, what type of USB it does, will it work in alternate mode, what voltage it can carry. And if you scroll down there, you carry on, there's also a pinout, which I've just scrolled past. I have got some screen grabs for this. I am going to deftly, while I do this, at the risk of crashing the entire podcast, I'm going to drag these into Discord so people can try and see them. There we go. So they should start to appear. Well, you got one of them anyway. Heaven knows if the other one will appear. There we go. Right, God, job done. Right, back to the script. And it is a nice little thing. Blimey, I need an assistant for this. It also has a companion ISO and Android app, which will very nicely talk to the device if I press the right button via Bluetooth. It's got a Bluetooth what's it in it, and it will give you sort of the same information but in just a slightly more accessible form, and you can sort of scroll up and see all the bits and bobs, and that's very nice. And also the app on the phone logs which cable you've used in, because there's a third screen which sort of gives you access to the raw data of the cable, so you can put a name on it, and then using the app, because it stores those cables that are tested, you can export them all out as a CSV and email them off to yourself, and I thought that was a nice little touch. The app also upgrades the Ian has just put that into Discord. Thank you, Ian. The app has also upgrades the firmware for the box too. Just to give you some parameters, it will read from USB 1.1 to USB 4. It will do 5 volts to 48 volts with a current of 0.5 to 5 amps. And for those of you who are just doing the Ohm's law calculations in your head, that's up to 240 watt cable. So it's got most things covered that are current at the moment. Now, as some of you noticed on Kickstart, this thing is 91 quid, so it's not cheap. I got this on Kickstarter, so I actually pay slightly more for it, which doesn't seem quite so fair, but there you go. Some of that was import tax though. But this isn't the sort of device that I expect households to own. But I think there is a need for this device for reasons which we've covered many times on this show. So if you're a repair cafe, a school technician, an office IT manager, this will work very nicely for you. Because one of the things I get asked a lot is, why is my phone slow at charging? excuse me, why does it take an hour to upload this movie to my phone? Or, if I wave these in front of you, which are some cables I got from eBay today, it's like, what have I bought? In fact, this one here, this wonderful cable, if I plugged it all in, but I won't do it because we are a little short of time, will do power delivery of up to 100 watts, but data transmission is USB 2. So that's why it will charge things, but data pushing is very, very slow. So there's a lot of that going on. And obviously now USB-C is the standard in mobiles and will very soon become the standard in laptops, because the same rules that apply to mobiles is coming for laptops as well in a couple of years. Knowing what cable you will run is becoming more important to many people. And obviously there's an EU directive at the moment to combat e-waste, which means that new devices don't ship with chargers. So having access to one of those, whether it's yours or there's one in the office or your local repair shop has got one, is very good. Now, why did I do the Kickstarter? KBQ, who made this, is basically an Austrian startup founded by a guy called Peter Traumuller. Apologies, Peter, if I just mush your name. And he's a young electronics engineer, ably assisted by running the business by Bianca. And if you've had a quick look at their site, they supply various cable testers for USB devices, basically PCBs with a little 3-volt battery on that you just plug it in and it will give you a little LED readout. So this device is basically their most advanced product, because it's all very nice and displays and it's got the app and things like that. So it's a natural progression. But the other reason I quite like this is because on page 9 of the manual, it says replacement parts. So as someone as Ian Rutson has found out, they'll sell you spares if you break it, which obviously also opens up the opportunity. So if when we get USB 5 or 6, you might be able to upgrade it yourself and change bits and things like that. Peter's done his homework. It's registered for and properly certified for Directive 2014-54 EU, which is the Radio Equipment Directive, and Japanese MIC certification. So he really has sort of put so much work into this, because we've been following on Discord, because there's a great Discord community. They've just announced they're doing a little development for a USB-A adapter, so you can test USB-A to C cables, which made me think, well, why didn't they put USB-A port in the first place? But I think the argument is that USB-C to C is now in the future, whereas A to C is legacy. So I think that might be the right choice. And really, that is all there is to say about it. It's really nice. It really works well. It's quick. And I found out this week why one of the cables in my shop I've been having a lot of problems with. I thought my hard drive was on the blink, and it's because I've got a shorted pin. Because it tells you that sort of thing as well. So, like I say, it's not one for every household. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's really well made. It's beautifully supported. It's repairable, and it's phenomenally good at the job. And I love it. I commend it to the floor.
Well, I think you've told us more than we could ever have really expected to learn about a device like this. Just one or two questions from Discord. Running Dax says, is it powered by USB?
It is. Basically, there's a third USB C port on the top, and you just need to give it some 5 volts. Just bog standard charger, plug it in, and it will light up. There is no battery on the inside, which of course it saves a lot of environmental issues too, because you don't need to worry about that sort of stuff.
I was going to say that sounds like a pain, but yes, you've sold me. You've won me round. Actually, it's a plus point. William Kirk says, can it test sockets as well as cables? I guess that would be a tricky question, wouldn't it?
No, it is purely cables. Now, whether they do something, because like I say, this guy is basically a one-man band, and it's a startup. The idea is there's going to be things that will bolt into this and adapt it. So that sort of stuff may come down the line.
And finally, from Discord, Ian Rutson says, does it run Doom?
It probably could. There's a firmware update. It wouldn't surprise me. Watch this space.
It probably does run some micro Linux or something. So yes. Roche, do you have any questions about the KBQ?
No.
Nope. In that case, I believe. Well, it was such a comprehensive explanation.
Well,
in that case, I believe we can move on to the voting. Now, I can't remember how to set up a vote on Discord, but Roche, please, will you cast your vote while I try to wrangle the...
Do you want me to do it? I can...
If you could, yes, that would be
no
great.
problem.
Then I can listen to Roche.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
I'm going to give it a hot.
Hey!
And I'm not going to buy it, but I'm glad it exists, and being able to test. Oh my God, man, who doesn't have like a drawer full of cables? Knowing what works and what doesn't, and what's efficient and what isn't. I like it.
Well, fair enough. I like the idea of it, but I feel like the cost of it is. I mean, it makes sense for Lee. I can understand why, if you have a shop, then it is wonderful to be able to very quickly and definitively say, this is a dodgy cable, you need to buy a new one. And then the customer can pay a tenner or whatever for a properly certified cable. But in my case, the person having to buy the new cable would be me. And so I would probably rather spend 90 quid on buying, let's say, 18 decent cables, which I know to work and whose specifications are known to me. And that would probably see me through till, 2050. I do have this little thing which is just an inline USB Type-C power meter, which I find is very handy for not finding broken cables, not unreliable ones, but just working out. Because as one of our dear friends on Discord said, USB, yes, it was null modem. USB-C cables are pretty confusing and poorly labelled, and I'd only disagree with that in that in most cases they're not labelled at all. And so what you can use them to charge or power is often hit or miss. So I would say, having spent, I think this was about £4 off AliExpress, I probably personally won't be spending the 90 on the full Caber Q. Having said that, I've been very, very selfishly just thinking about myself, my own situation, and in fact, all of that stuff that Lee has explained is clearly valuable, and not just to a very, very niche market, but not just to retailers, for example. But I think any IT department definitely wants to have one of those. Like systems engineers cost hundreds and hundreds of pounds a day. You don't want them wasting their time trying to work out which cable is which. So yeah, no, I am going to say hot.
Absolutely, particularly when you start getting to USB-C with laptops, and you're in an office and there's 1,000 laptops, and suddenly someone's thinking, well, why isn't my laptop charging quickly enough? And your natural reaction with a barrel charger, it's either got 19 volts coming out of it or it hasn't. So you think, well, maybe there's a battery problem, but if they've got a Duff cable attached to it, it changes the possibilities. So I think in the future, this sort of device is going to become, or in the case of this cable, which has got nonsense markings on it, so you don't know what it is, you've got a case of the other one where it's got the wrong markings on it, because and these are all available from a very cheap River-based website, named website, that arrived the past few days. So sorry, do I have to say it's hot? It's hot. It's definitely hot, but it's not for home use. I agree. It is a technician tool. Hopefully there will be a V2, a V3, where the price will come down. This is the first generation Kickstarter version, so it is a bit pricey. But I love the cut of this guy's jib, and I really do hope that if you are the sort of person that runs a repair cafe or a fixer or a library of things or something like this, that the equivalent that are out there on the market are not a lot cheaper than this for a good one. So go and support this this young chappie.
Is he known to be young?
I've seen a picture of him. He definitely looks young.
Oh,
but then again, most people look young compared to me. So, but
who knows what he may go on to accomplish? Rose, you writing down your final thoughts?
No, it was just to Lee's point. I can see the economics of this working really nicely for a company like that has a lot of cables. So, like, even if you go into any of the larger companies in the city where you've got their phones and stuff like that, I mean, the speed with which they can go through it, not just in terms of the consultants, but just in terms of the preservation of the assets. And I know it's like, well, they're only like $5, but if you $5 two cables by 17,000 people, then suddenly the economics of it, and for what, for like £100 in every office. Do you know what? I thought it was hot, but now I think it's Scorchio.
Wow. I think very few things have been rated Scorchio on the podcast. And also, this is a pretty special score on Discord. 93% say hot. 93 to 7. That's 26 votes to 2. So an absolute walkover, a landslide for the Caber Q, whatever the hell it was called. And yes, let us, at this peak moment when our emotions are running high, what could be better than, I don't know if there actually is a post-roll advert on this podcast, but fingers crossed. I'm going to wrap it up and say thank you very much to everyone on Discord. Thank you to Roche and to Lee, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Alrighty. Got it.
Oh, Darian, you should do it again. That was great fun.
Absolutely.
Oh, it was so hard work for me compared to
was
usual.
it really?
It's
No,
fine.
we were-
It's fine.
No, it
oh,
was
well,
great.
thank you. That's very kind of you to say.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
All right. Well, I will go and ruminate on that. Thanks again. I'm going to close the room now, so see you soon.
Au revoir.
Bye.
Bye for now.